There are so many favorite hymns, and each one of them has its own reason to be favorite. And We Are the Church is one of them. Church is not a building, not a steeple, not a resting place, but a church is people. Did you hear that? Church is not a place to take a nap, but church is a people. So I am the church, and you are the church, and we are the church together. I love this. This hymn teaches not only this, but also the reality of the church. Sometimes the church is a marching, and sometimes it's a bravely burning, and sometimes a riding, and sometimes, for whatever reasons, it's a hiding. Yes, that's what we experience in our faith journey from time to time. But you know what? The very next verse says, always is a learning. Is that true? What if it's not? What if there is no learning or no willingness to learn? When I came to the United States about 25 years ago to Texas, I was very impressed and challenged by those people who came to church on Sunday. Most of them came to church not only for the worship service, but also for both Sunday school and worship service. For them, Sunday school was not an option. Now, it's hard to see that. That's the painful reality of the church today. So that's why we are rethinking word as we are celebrating 25 years of ministries. So first we have talked about the rethink worship. God is always looking for those who worship Him from their heart. Second, we learn about the rethink outreach. We should rethink outreach from the context of the people we want to outreach, like Jesus did. And last week we have talked about the rethink relationship. Though we want to love, and though we want to be loved, there is always the challenge and great risk of pain and hurt, even in our loving relationship with God and with others. But the good news is that Christ in our heart brings a radical hospitality in our life. So God of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob, of David, and Peter and John want to become my God and your God. And He wants to build a covenant relationship with us. And He has some expectation for us to be responsible in our context, in our culture and society. So today, we are going to talk about the REthink Discipleship through the text today. So if you have a Bible with you, please open the Gospel of Luke. Gospel of Luke chapter 6 and verse 39. It says, a blind person cannot lead another blind person, right? Won't they both fall into a ditch? How true it is. It isn't easy to understand, yet it is hard to apply into our life. So who are they, those blind who lead others? Those people who think they already know God's will because of their arrogance in their heart. So there is no transformation in their life, no matter how many years they faithfully attend the church, no matter how much they gave. Pastor and author and pastor John Ortberg tells a story of a man that he pastored. He called him Danny. Not the Danny we have in here, so I think it's... The Danny was not a happy guy. Danny attended the church his whole life, but he was not happy. I mean, not in the church life only, but also in life in general. His face could tell how unhappy he was, how negative he was. So one day, lay leader asked him, Danny, are you happy? And Danny said, yeah. Then tell your face. Pastor John, the one day tried to help the congregation to experience about the contemporary music. It's nothing radical, but it's a small step toward the 20th century. Danny didn't like the contemporary music. And he began to voice and by saying the music was too loud. The Pastor John Ortberg tried to explain that they were surrounded by the people who don't know about the God, who have not met Jesus Christ. Then he looked at him and said, the music is too loud. And then he began to tell the other staffs of the church and even strangers in the narthex, don't you think the music is too loud? One day, a man came to the church office and flashed his badge and announced that he was the agent of OSHA. Do you know what the OSHA? Huh? Yeah, occupational safety and health administration. Because someone filed a complaint because the decibel level was about the church service. And he was under order to investigate. So who filed the complaint? Yes, it was Danny. So Pastor John and other staffs could only laugh. And then the agent joined them and saying, you know what? Can you imagine the abuse that I'm getting from the church like this? Pastor John reflected and said, Danny is not changing. Danny has been just cranky. And his wife and his children couldn't relate to him. So he's not changing. There is no change. And it's amazing. And he stays in a cranky year after years, and nobody mentioned about that. And then thinking that was a Danny. So how many people like a Danny's are around us? Maybe not like that much, but no transformation in life. Jesus said with all authority and said, go and make disciples. So our mission is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. In verse 40, in today's text, it says, disciples are not greater than their teacher. Disciples in Greek here is metates or metates, which means follower and learner. How are we following Jesus Christ in our faith journey in today's context? Pastor John tells from his message, after becoming a Christian, the goal of being a disciple is not just learning about how to live like Jesus, but actually live like Jesus. The point is not just learning how to live, but actually live like Jesus. The real transformation. That's the goal of being disciples and followers of Jesus Christ. Transformation. The real transformation. That's what we need. That's what happened. And the people to the people in the early church in the book of Acts when they devote themselves to the teachings of apostle. But it's hard to see that way, not only from the perspective of Christians, but also from the perspective of nuns who are not affiliated with any faith organizations. So they're saying, I don't go to church. Not because I don't like the Jesus, but because I don't see Jesus there. So that's the context of the life in today. Then here's a question to ponder. What should we rethink discipleship in our context today? In order to rethink, we need to think from the assumption we used to have about being a discipleship. Pastor James White it tells from his book, The Rethinking the Church, about the life change. So here's some life change, what it says. Life change happens as salvation. And another assumption is that life change continues naturally over times. I think it makes a lot of sense since we have experienced many people who have encountered Jesus Christ and experienced the transformation. And then sometimes I see those people who are saying that, oh, I don't see those the radical change in my life, but when I look back the long time period, I see that suddenly there is some growth. Then, does life change comes over the time and naturally and without doing anything? Times ago, as I mentioned that in the beginning, and so they had some understanding that Sunday school and those learnings and worships was not an option. They all devoted themselves to learn and worship and together. But in today's context, how am I supposed to understand and practice discipleship without having any intentional learning? Pastor Rick Warren explains the faith journey by using the baseball diamond. So we can see the next the pictures. I think it really tells us the faith journey very well. So as a first step to advance to the first base, knowing Christ. So we get converted to Jesus. So we have a personal relationship with Christ. And the next stage is knowing in Christ. So we continue to grow in that relationship at church or at various small group. And then in the middle, there is a discipleship and a second base. So you know about being a disciple and discover your spiritual gift, and you share that gift with others as you serve Christ. So that's serving Christ and sharing Christ. However, Adam Hamilton, the pastor of the resurrection, the Church of Resurrection, said his experience is completely inverse. He has witnessed so many people who start their life without knowing God, but because of someone who shared Christ and ministered to them, they got some attraction, and so they got involved in ministry. And then as the next step, and they learn about the more being a disciples, and then that helped them to grow in Christ. And then they accept Jesus Christ as their Lord. I'm sure some of you experienced that the process from, like Pastor Rick Warren says, the first base and second base and third base. And then some of them experience it the other way, third base and second base and the first base. Whatever orders you have, whatever orders you like or you experience, there is one thing common. The discipleship in the center in this process. And it is necessary for the transformation. Many of you know that I and Maria and I really enjoyed fishing this year. So both of us got the cut northern pike and drumfishes and Asian carp and all those big fishes until we set a goal to catch a salmon from the Michigan Lake. So whenever we have some time, we went to the Waukegan Harbor and then cast the spinning rod again and again and again, an hour after hour, but we couldn't catch any. There wasn't no joy anymore. It's just frustrating us. Since some of them got the fish. And then a couple of weeks ago, I read a book, the complete guide of mastering trout fish and salmon fish like a pro. So that was a title. So that really attracted my attention, and so I read that. And then one thing I learned there are 7 million anglers around the world. And then only 10% catch 90% of fishes. What does it tell us? I mean, there are so many things to consider. I mean, well, I can catch any bluegills. There are so many bluegills in the pond near us. But the trout fishing or salmon fishing is different. The bait and times of the year and times of the day and wind and the clarity and all those things. There are so many things to consider. That's why I couldn't catch any fish. So I think it's the same thing in our life. Transformation happens not by trying, but intentional training. Jesus never says that following him is easy. Yes, there will be a challenge, there will be a great risk, but the good news is that he promised to be with us always. And another good news is, in the text, in next verse it says, disciples are not greater than their teacher, but whoever is fully prepared will be like their teacher. Whoever is fully prepared will be like their teacher. So when we are fully prepared as a disciples, then actually we can live like Jesus. With all the strength and power and confidence. That's a great news. God's grace isn't everywhere. And we're all busy. And we all have a limited time. So how are you going to use that limited time? The Marty shared that is encouraged to go to work to Emmaus, right? In the life journey, how much do you spend your time intentionally for your spiritual growth? Isn't it wonderful just to take off a couple of days off completely about the life and many things? So that's what they experience, only love from God through many people who are serving them. And Nico is helping us now is about the web communication. So he spent a lot of time doing. And one thing that he's preparing is help the congregation, people to sign up. Well, whatever, volunteers or anything, any event. So I think that's a wonderful idea. So you can just check there. So when we announce it in the floor, it's gone. After days or week, oh, what did he say? Huh? But when you go to the website, those are the areas, those people and groups need volunteers, it will be there, so you can sign up. And then one thing that he is preparing for the cleaning for the church, I was shocked, and we have only 9 opportunity for this year. If you haven't done anything in this year, that's a wonderful to grab. One of the week, they're willing to serve that way. And many things. And then one thing that I learned noticed that is my time is limited in here too. I have only 8 months to serve in Christ the United Methodist Church. Last week we had a church conference, and the DS announced that, so next June, and so next the July, you will get a new the pastor, since I have finished the 5th year. One of the reality of in our conference is, in our conference there are in our district there are 78 churches. And 61 churches are having the pastors less than the 5 years. 52 out of 78 is of only the 3 years. So that means the average serving year is 2.5 years or 3 years in our conference. So Bishop is aggressively try to fix that, to increase at least 5 years. So Bishop is a request both the church and the pastor, clergy, to serve at least 5 years. So that's what that means. So that's what the cabinet is going to assign me and to some other church. So we all have a limited time to serve. So how are we going to use this limited time? The good news is God promise to be with us. So we can use this time and wisely, and with love, and with God's grace. So may the Lord bless your heart as you take this opportunity as a present in your life. The Bill Kinney, the American cartoonist, said, yesterday is a history, and tomorrow is a mystery. And today is a gift of God. That's why we called it as a present. Would you take this as a present, an opportunity for your spirit, for your spiritual growth? So you may live like a Jesus in life. Let's take a moment to pray.